Yeah, she does. Yeah. Yeah.
She
really does.
I do
Yeah,
that.
mine started being short with me in the car. For reals. I'm like, I don't understand what I did.
Hey Mickey,
Overused.
can I borrow your spoon, please?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you might want it. Oh no, you've got one.
Got a couple.
And I was like, going past the always come translate to
Awesome cat.
going past India now, like a India. Yeah, very good. So my husband always like,
So
no.
So when we talk about the three this number 3 that we've kind of been discussing a bit, there was the 3 incense sticks that we light at the temple, and one was for the Buddha, one was for the Dhamma, which is the teachings of the Buddha, and one was for the Sangha, which is the monk explained that as the monks, or the community of monks that teach, I guess. And I think that's just an interesting thing to start off on, because Sangha is the word that comes from Sanskrit. Sangha is the community. The Sangha is the community, is the group of people gathering together. And Satsang, so what we're doing now, Satsang is those two words, Sat and Sang. Sang is Sangha, so it's the abbreviation there. So when we do a Satsang, Sat is a Sanskrit word that means truth, and so Satsang is when there is a community gathered to discuss the truth, essentially. That's really what a Satsang is. And so that's what this session is for each day, that we have one. And so there's no kind of absolute topic necessarily. I mean, we can choose a topic, but it's just, the idea is it's a spiritual discussion. So that's what we're gathered here for, to discuss the truth of the matter. And even I really like that word, that saying, the truth of the matter, because that resonates with the essence of the spiritual discussion, because the truth of the matter is that the matter is not really the truth. The truth is that which is beyond the matter. So that's a nice consideration. So on that, any thoughts or questions on the truth of the matter, or the truth, or anything at all related to yoga? I mean, yeah, it's a big topic, and we can go anywhere with it. I bought a whiteboard because maybe I can illustrate certain things if they come up. Sometimes it's good just to have a visual. But I'll put it to you guys first if you had any questions or thoughts or comments on any of that. Otherwise, I can.
Can we turn the fan on?
Mm-hmm.
What is the truth of the matter of the fan?
So
Is that the subject?
no, I'm just hot.
Maybe just pop it on low.
All right, so I'm going to start with a question.
All right.
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Questions?
Let's just get right at it then.
There's a switch.
So, if the matter is an illusion, all of this is not really real, why are we bothering? Rose, this morning you were saying the 2 points of focus are the breath, is it called drishti? And I just found myself in that moment when you said it, like focusing on the thing and thinking, cool, but like, like my work is working on bodies as well. Like I've worked with bodies we have a vessel, we have to use the vessel.
Yeah.
But really, like, why do we bother?
Well, we don't have to bother about it.
A lot of people don't bother, do
But
they?
Some people don't
You
want
know,
to.
like it's in the
Yeah.
shows, you know.
But I guess it's the potential to, like, as far as we know, humans are the only species that have this potential to realise that. Like, we can conceptually recognise that it's coming and going and it feels kind of real. But to actually have the potential to realise it, as far as we know, is, as human beings, are the only species that can actually do that. So why not do it?
But is your question why bother playing in the playground kind of vibe?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think it's a very good question. So from that perspective, and that's bringing up in essence the non-dual philosophy right there, Advaita Vedanta. So Advaita Vedanta is the non-dual philosophy that comes from India, from the Indian tradition, the ancient yogis. And Advaita Vedanta would say that this world that we're living in, that we sort of get involved in, is an illusion, is Maya. They call it Maya, the great illusion. But it's only in the sense of that it's not, because we can get really caught up in this idea of illusion, like, oh, if it's an illusion, it's not real, then why bother? You know, why are we even here? Or, you know, or the other extreme is, don't tell me that this is an illusion. I'm feeling this feeling. I'm feeling this hurt in my body. I'm enjoying this moment. I'm, you know, all the delights and suffering within the human experience. You know, telling me that's an illusion. So, and the other extreme is like, it's an illusion, so why even bother getting involved? So I think, first of all, it's an illusion from the perspective of this idea of ultimate truth. So ultimate truth, meaning truth that what is eternal, the eternal truth of the here and now, eternal beingness, consciousness, is the true reality. So call that, you know, we can call it whatever we like, but let's call it consciousness. Consciousness just is, and consciousness is infinite, it's eternal, never began, never ends, and never changes, actually, which is also hard to postulate because we're so used to operating in a dual world, a dual perspective with our minds which are dual, that everything's always changing. Everything's evolving or devolving. And this is where we could come around to the three gunas or the trimurti, just simply the trimurti of, like, when things come into existence, there's a Brahma energy. Brahma is the creative energy. There's a Vishnu energy, which is a preservation energy. And then there's a Shiva energy, which is the destroying energy. And so this is the evolution and the devolution of the universe, of everything within the universe. Everything that comes and goes, everything that has a life, so to speak. And so our bodies and our minds are part of that play of coming and going. And we know that. We fear, when we talk about death and that we fear death, that's what we're fearing, is the death of this body and this mind, because we know that it will pass. But we also have this sense of that, you know, something will stay on forever. There is something, and you can simply just call that the soul, as the eternal aspect of who you are. as a kind of fragment of truth, oneness, consciousness within an individual expression. Call that the soul, if you like. But the purpose, one might say, from these teachings is that we're here for two main purposes, really. One is just to actually, as consciousness, expressing through us and experiencing through us. It's a way, like the whole of creation, the whole of manifestation, everything within the universe is a way for consciousness to experience itself. So consciousness, as consciousness, there's nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to express. So, and this is where it's hard to understand, because we're coming from our limited minds. But the idea is that consciousness somehow, and this is where we start talking about Samkhya philosophy, which Eric will go into more detail on Friday. He's much better than me. Samkhya philosophy is the original philosophy that predates yoga. That's what yoga borrowed to create its own philosophy. But Samkhya philosophy would say that there is this kind of this moment where, and how that happens, I don't know. I don't think we can understand, but there is a movement somehow, and the movement is where consciousness starts to express itself. And creates the universe. The universe is being created, and so then, as a human being, we have this incredible intellect that we've been gifted with somehow, and that gives us the ability, to experience this creative manifestation. So, in a nutshell, we're here to enjoy the delights of this world. So, really, we should just all be having a good time. Because we're only here for a short time anyway, as far as this body and mind goes. And consciousness's purpose of having us here is so it can experience itself through our lens and our senses, our minds. And so we've got chitta. Chitta, in yogic terms, is the lens through which we experience the rest of the world. And that's our minds, using our senses to see, hear, touch, smell, taste, and delight in it all. So one of the reasons of being here is just purely to experience the delights of nature. And this in a way is the focus of the tantric tradition. So tantra, it's not just about having sex, as you know, it's been borrowed. Everyone has these kind of sex workshops, since they're tantric yogis or whatever. But having sex is a part of living,
Yeah, that's right.
and it's a part of enjoying this world.
Sexy time.
So it can be definitely part of the experience, but not just to get lost in just that. There's plenty of other delightful experiences to be had in the world. But Tantra is essentially that idea that where we are delighting in the manifestation of the universe. We're experiencing it, and this is where then you have all these various kind of streams of yoga which have slightly different focuses on how we approach this experience of being human and working with the intention of what we're kind of meant to be doing here. Like, what are we here for? Have a good time. But also within that having a good time, we could say there's this stream of bhakti yoga, and bhakti yoga is the yoga of devotion. So it's often expressed through song, chanting, and it's devotion to essentially the delights of nature. So often talked of as the goddess, chants to Kali Ma, Durga Ma, Parvati, or whichever form of the goddess, because the goddess is like the energy of nature being expressed. That's the goddess. The gods are more the spirit which pervades nature. Purusha Prakriti. This is where we go back to Sankhya philosophy. But the other intention really of being humans is to actually, ideally, while we're still in the human body, before we die, is to realize our true nature. To realize that we are actually consciousness, but we're just having a human experience. And so that's more where you could say, well, not going to bother with all of this because that's going to be my focus. And that's where you become the renunciate yogi. And you just go and live in a cave or live in an ashram and renounce the world because you really want to focus on just
I don't know if that was quite a quest.
self-realization.
That's not for me.
Now the beauty is though we can marry the two paths in a sense, the two intentions of our human experience. A is to enjoy the delights of living in the world, and B is to realize the truth of who we are. And this is where I get very sort of excited about our teacher Clive, because and I mean Eric as well, but Eric's almost, he's a little bit more, well, not really, no, he's both too. He's still, we've got a bottle of whiskey for Eric to give to him as a present. Tequila, actually, because he does enjoy the delights of living in the world still. But he's definitely in the renunciate. He's not renunciate, but he's definitely on that spiritual path as well. But Clive is the classic example of the kind of tantric yogi, but right into his Advaita Vedanta, and as such he delights sharing both teachings in a sense, and not that they're different. There's just a different
Taste or quality to it.
taste,
Something like that.
something like that. Because with the Bhakti Yogi, you're still, or the Tantric or the Bhakti path, you're still acknowledging the truth, consciousness, but you're acknowledging the magnificence of how it manages to create this magnificent universe that we're experiencing. So
Clive kind of suggests that from the tantric perspective, it's like everything that is a part of nature is calling us home. Like if you look at a beautiful flower in nature, it's sparking the divinity that's already within you. You have these moments all the time, and it's so everything that humans experience is sparking this divinity to then help us realize that it's not separate, one and the same. And then from the non-dual perspective, it's more like your inner spirit is falling back to your true nature. Something like that.
And so then yoga comes into the picture as one of the kind of roadmaps to be able to to understand or realize these truths. Because I mean, most of us, sometimes people come to yoga as just a physical practice, doing your downward dogs and your twists and whatnot. And some people think that it's just about having a healthy body and maybe helping to de-stress a bit, which it does, of course. And that's a beautiful thing about the practice, because ultimately we're still living in this body. We're having this human experience, having a body and a mind, and everything that goes with that, our emotions and whatnot. So it's kind of, I think it's quite useful to be able to have a smooth ride, you know, like when you're choosing to go to a destination somewhere. Yeah, you can go in an old beaten old van, truck, whatever, and break down along the way, and you know, get there in the end. But it's kind of nice to cruise in a Ferrari, isn't it? Tesla or whatever you fancy, a Ducati motorcycle. And so doing this, the physical part of yoga, which is the asana, the pranayama, and the meditation. Meditation's not so much physical; that's more for our mental well-being. But that's where we can have a much more vital vehicle for the journey. So I think it's a highly commendable practice, even just if you're thinking of that. Because there's spiritual traditions where the physical aspect's not really that important, because maybe they're really just focused on realizing the truth. So they'll maybe just do the minimum they need to maintain the vehicle, but that's not really important for some. But for the Hatha yogi, and that's our tradition, is our Hatha yoga, which actually kind of stems from Tantra yoga. It's part of the Tantric tradition. Hatha yoga is, one of its focuses is, well, let's get this vehicle really tip-top shape so that we can enjoy the journey and have a good vehicle to do so. And then, in a sense, it can maybe potentially help with the realization, if you're not having to sort of worry or concern yourself about your physical and your mental ailments, then often it can be that the spiritual aspect comes with more ease. That's not necessarily the case. It doesn't have to be that way, but it can be. So we do this practice for that potential, but also obviously just to have a great vehicle to enjoy the ride along the way. And I know for myself, that's certainly my experience personally, is that when I've slacked off with maintaining this vehicle, you know, I feel a lot more tamasic. So those three gunas that we mentioned yesterday, the three gunas are the three states, in a sense, of energy that moves through us. Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. I'll write those down. Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva are, in essence, the. I'll read something from here, on those actual gunas, just to give you a greater insight that it's better than me trying to move my way through it. Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva are basically the qualities that everything within the world that's being created has. So everything within creation has an element of rajas, tamas, and sattva. Or sattva, rajas, and tamas. I'll just read something from here. Life's complex journey has the potential to bind as well as to liberate. To navigate this dual nature of experience, the ancient school of Indian philosophy called Samkhya, that which sums up, which Eric will take you deeper into on Friday, divides reality into two categories: the knower, Purusha, and the known, Prakriti. So Purusha is spirit, and Prakriti is nature. Purusha, the self, is the subject, the one who is aware, who knows. And Prakriti, on the other hand, encompasses everything that comes before us in the objective universe, whether psychological or material. Prakriti is all that can be known. Unmanifest Prakriti is a reservoir of limitless potential, consisting of three fundamental forces called the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, in balance with each other. Through the interplay of these forces, Prakriti manifests as the universe. All that can be known in this world, tangible and intangible, is a manifestation of the gunas in their various forms. Cultivating awareness of how the gunas operate can be a valuable tool on the spiritual path. By apprehending the feel of each guna and using that knowledge as a guide, you can move towards recognition of the knower, the Purusha in you. So Purusha, the self, is the subject, that which is aware and that which knows. So it's also called spirit, or let's go back to that idea of consciousness. So consciousness and Purusha are pretty much the same thing. Spirit, great spirit, and Prakriti is nature. So all the manifest world is Prakriti. It talks about, it gets a little bit complicated, this idea of unmanifest and manifest Prakriti. But unmanifest is the potential, and manifest is that which has been manifested. So basically, if you think about, let's say, a clay pot, so the pot in itself is a manifested thing. But what's it come from? From clay. So clay is the substance, is the potentiality. So within a heap of clay, there is the potential for a pot to be. And when the pot is there, that's the manifest aspect. That's Prakriti manifested. But its potential was the clay. So the clay has the potential maybe to be all sorts of things, not just a pot. It could be a cup, a plate, all sorts of things. And the gunas, these three forces, are the forces in which the manifest comes to be. And then even while the manifest is, or is being experienced, or is having a life or whatever, so we are manifest beings, our bodies and our minds. So we have a certain level of these energies of the three gunas in manifestation. So the yogic aim is to be sattvic. Sattvic is the most sort of aspiring energetic point of where you really want to be. The essence of sattva is to act like a transparent pane of glass, allowing light, the light of conscious awareness, to reveal itself in the operations of the mind and in nature. So even though it might sound like enlightenment, it's not enlightenment itself, but it unveils what is true and what is real. Sat. That word again, sat. Sat, truth. It shows itself as beauty, balance, and inspiration, and it promotes life, energy, health, and contentment. Cultivating sattva by making choices in life that elevate awareness and foster unselfish joy is a principal goal of yoga. So when I'm just kind of hanging out in my yogic way, and maybe something comes up, let's say I don't know, some friend that used to really annoy me when I wasn't so sattvic comes up and starts being really annoying, where in the past, if I was a bit more reactive, I would have oh, damn that guy. But because I've cultivated an essence of being sattvic, what's his face gets really annoying and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just sitting in my peaceful place. I'm being sattvic. That's kind of the energy of sattva. Just to be equanimous, having an equanimous kind of attitude to life, that nothing really bothers you anymore. Not spiritual bypassing completely, a friend is crying because they've lost a loved one, be there to support them. It's not like you say, don't worry, nothing should bother anyone or anything. We're still having a human experience, so I'm still going to get upset too if my friend passes away. But I'm mostly just sort of maintaining this kind of balanced disposition, and that's having a sattvic mind. So it's not a state of enlightenment, because it's still just about cultivating the right kind of energy and attitude and disposition. But that's what a good yogi would aim to be, is as sattvic as possible. And it's generally still with the aim of self-realization as, let's say, the ultimate aim. It's useful to be approaching it from a sattvic place. Doesn't mean that if I'm more rajasic or tamasic that I can't self-realize. However, just generally speaking, that's the ideal place to be. And it just helps in general to make, again, that journey with more ease and a bit cruisier, when you're not so bothered by everything and anyone. So,
Ricky, would you say that like when I hear that, it just sounds to me like the yoga practice just naturally brings you into that state, I would say. That it's not like you're choosing to be that way.
yeah.
And you might even notice that when you are more rajasic, that you might have those moments of like reaction.
Yep,
It's like a
absolutely.
natural,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the yoga practice cultivates
a
a
sattvic
sattvic
way of being. Just as like a monk, that their practices would naturally bring them into that
Mm.
sattvic space or state.
And it helps to, I think it helps to have a good, a strong, but vital and flexible body, but also good energy that the pranayama really helps with, to just kind of enhance your koshas. So koshas are the other aspects of our being, which I could go into in a sec maybe. It just brings you. So it's kind of like when you go into shavasana, and you go into that place. You've done a workout, you've done your yoga practice, you've done a bit of breath work. You're lying down and you feel like, I feel good now. But in that place of shavasana where it's not like you feel exhausted, that's going into tamasic energy. But just where you feel kind of like, I feel good. I just feel kind of energized but relaxed at the same
And
time.
unbothered maybe by anything too, where it has that kind of quality.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell, like, when you're in more of a rajasic energy, I think, like, naturally your body's speeding up, the mind is maybe a bit more chaotic or busy.
Which brings us to what is rajas. What is rajasic? Rajas running in place. Rajas is the energy of change. It's distinguished by passion, desire, effort, and pain. Its activity may cause movement either towards sattva, increased spiritual understanding, or towards tama, increased ignorance. Thus it may act positively or negatively, but it's most often characterized as unsteady, agitated, and unhappy, prompting change for change's sake alone. If freshly picked tomatoes are sattvic, spicy tomato sauce is rajasic. Good for a Friday night pizza, but perhaps not an everyday meal choice. Rajas brings happiness by prompting the coupling of the senses with their objects. Thus, Rajas also binds us to attachment, to the fruits of action, and to sensory pleasures of every kind. I want that thing. I want it now.
I need it.
Yeah, gimme.
That's my one.
That's rajasic. So you can see how rajasic is sometimes, and the thing is to realize that these energies, it's not like, let's say if everything in the universe was just sattvic, we'd be living in a pretty boring place. There'd be no excitement at all. Would there? Even though we want to cultivate a sattvic way of being,
It'd be pretty nice.
we still need to appreciate that there needs to be want that spicy tomato sauce occasionally on the pizza.
It's chili.
Yeah, we want a bit of chili, we want a bit of spice in our lives. So, a bit of rajasic energy is needed.
And you do need it,
Rajasic energy is the energy of just helping things grow and...
You're running and you catch a train.
Yeah, you need to catch that train, you need a bit of fire in your belly to get there. So, all these various energies are always there at certain sort of levels. But the idea is if you were constantly on this rajasic energy, you'd be like, Gong having 10, 15 coffees a day. Gong's very rajasic.
Yeah.
He's super rajasic. He doesn't stop.
But it's been fun. Like here, amongst like-minded people in this environment, it's very easy to be sattva. Like, it's everybody's wonderful. No one's pissing me off. Like everything's just go with the flow. But then when I get back to my normal day-to-day life, then Raja's like
all over the place, like, and I lose that. You know, people piss me off, like, and annoy me, and I have this intention of wanting to be, I suppose I call it, you know, graceful and in a state of grace, and you know, that's what I just keep asking for. Just, I want to be, you know, I want to have this grace. I want to be patient. I want to not get upset easily. Not, you know, I want to keep that tranquility. But I just, you get pulled into stuff that you don't even necessarily want to be involved in, and it just takes you away from that. So, you know, I love sitting here talking about all of this, but how do I get that?
How do you integrate it back
Yeah.
in the real world?
Yeah,
Or in
well,
the
that I have to punch
operating?
in so I can pay the bills and do that. 'Cause
Well, I think
That's not
I
very
think it's a
fun.
case of that you have to sometimes just jump on that Rajasic train because there's no avoiding it. Because, you know, there's, if you were in a meeting or whatever with your workers and you just kind of just thought, no, let's all take some deep breaths and just chill out, a cup of tea. They'll all be looking at you going, what the hell's wrong with this person? So you've got to sometimes meet these energies where they're at. There's nothing. But I think it's important then to be able to just have the space where you can, and that's why, you know, doing your own practice, going to yoga classes, and doing things in getting out to nature. I mean, nature is very sattvic in a sense. I mean, it's got rajas and tamas as well, but it's it's where you can cultivate your own sattvic energy. So I think, yeah, just having those times set aside where you're doing something that gives you more of that sattvic energy. So you go into the rajasic time, do what needs to be done, but then it's also about you making the choice of how you react to that energy coming at you. Because we can, you know, you can have that monk, like that beautiful image. It's from Baraka, the movie Baraka. If anyone's seen Baraka, beautiful movie, highly recommend it. Where there's this monk and he's walking down a city street, like somewhere New York or somewhere super busy, and it's like super rajasic, you know, just everyone bouncing about, doing their thing, going to work, da da da. And the monk is just like taking one step at a time, just super slowly. So basically there's all this chaos around him, but he's totally maintaining his sattvic autonomous state, you know, not being bothered at all by all the chaos around him. So it's, in a sense, we need to be able to cultivate that state of mind, which is easier said than done.
Yeah, I had a really simplistic answer that works for me, and that is acceptance. Yes, you're going to feel that rajasic fighting, that humanity thing, but if you can accept it and kind of focus on the now and not the past and not the things that are upsetting you, then that acceptance of it's okay to be feeling this way and to be in the present, and it actually really brings a clarity and calmness, I think. But yeah, whatever tools work.
But just being aware of that is important because people aren't even aware of that. They're just reacting. So at least you're actually going, I can sense something. Just figuring that out, and then people always talk about boundaries. It's easy, just set boundaries. Until you're in that situation, and you're like, now I've got to set a boundary. It's not very good, it's not very easy.
Oh, I think that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm
Yeah,
getting
well,
lots of
that's what it is.
pushback.
Those boundaries aren't
I
easy.
don't like it. I'm not playing it.
Like, it's a bit like just being unaffected by it. Like, we don't need to control anything that's going on around us to create the peace. Or it's kind of like like that. But you just took me to the image of for those that weren't here, we went to go and sit with the monk, and there was some fireworks that went off, and I was just witnessing him, and he was unaffected by it. That's a state of mind that is cultivated or recognized, that even within challenging situations or disturbing situations, it's come to that place
He was
of
unshaken with that.
understanding where
Until he was his
Shaken.
mobile phone went off.
I
thought it was shaking.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I had to get it in. I had to sort of throw that in.
But I guess too, like if it's a game, like if you're playing, whether it's basketball or cricket or whatever you're doing, you practice hard to do that.
Yes.
So I guess it's like in life,
Definitely.
you have to practice.
Practice. Yeah.
We have a mantra we have every morning that my husband and I say to each other. And it's, may our day be filled with love, peace, positivity, non-reaction, non-judgment, mental, and no dramas. And I'm human, don't worry, you know, I still, you know, have my moments, of course, but it's we share sometimes when we come home, you know, someone's pissing you off or whatever, and then we discuss how we're going to deal with it and how we're going to, how can you, and I shouldn't, it sounds terrible, it sounds like, you know, how do you outsmart them, and that's not what it's about, but it's, it's just sort of trying to be more accepting of what everybody's so different, and trying to gauge that and work out how to just keep moving through without it affecting you as much as you really, in a good way and a bad way, if you know what I mean. That makes sense.
Yeah, beautiful. That's for sure.
I really struggle with this in my family unit.
Oh yeah.
With people that have known me for 50 years and they know where all the dead bodies are buried and where all the buttons are. I feel I go there and then I'm regressing. How do I not?
They got all the buttons, those guys.
Yeah, they know.
But that's a
And they sort of told you, even
Yep.
even like, oh, this is your favourite colour. No, that was my favourite colour
Yes.
when I was 12. You know, like just kind of letting you evolve. Like,
Yeah.
What do they say if you think you're in life and you're going?
yeah, and I struggle to not I just leave. I withhold myself. I go, I'm actually going.
That's
I
an option.
sort of don't want to do that anymore. I'm like, interested in
Again,
your
for me,
advice
it's
to say what.
acceptance.
Yeah.
Because that is who they are, that is who they choose to be.
Yes, that's right.
And it doesn't actually affect you unless you go there.
That is so true.
Yeah, there's usually a thought that carries on from the initial moment, isn't it? It's like a moment happens and then there's like a thought saying, oh, that's what they were saying. So it's kind of like, you've got to pay attention to the afterthoughts that carry the charge. or something.
Yes.
It's not easy.
No.
Because you're a
No.
child and you've kind of been brought up with that. And it's a real, you have to be really strong in yourself to find that acceptance.
But also if that energy is coming at you from everywhere in your life, then maybe you get to ask yourself, why am I magnetizing that to me? And it's much easier to cultivate other ways of responding and being when there's much less of that around you. So boundaries, really fierce boundaries, and not allowing that in, because why would you? If you have a choice.
Really negative,
You actually always
you
have a
can
choice.
move away, it's better.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah.
Easy.
Disrupting,
It's the lesson.
Yeah.
On the other side of the coin, though,
we're in the good, aren't we?
we didn't looked at tamas yet. Tamas is often translated as inertia. It's like lazy energy. Tamas, losing our way. Tamas conceals the presence of consciousness. It causes dullness and ignorance through its power to obscure. Its nature is heavy and dense. One Sanskrit synonym for tamas is sthiti, or steady. In its more sattvic garb, so when tamas is helping within getting into a more sattvic state, it can supply a steadying influence in life. For example, bed rest can lead to healing. So, sleep is tamasic, but it's essential. Tamas is primarily immobilizing. Tamasic foods are lifeless, stale, or impure. Tamasic entertainment is mindless and intoxicating. Tamas leads to inaction when action is required. Each of us has experienced the binding powers of tamas, the appeal of lethargy, procrastination, and sleep. So on that fact of causes ignorance and dullness, there is another word in Sanskrit called
That's so cute.
that's the word.
Super highway, isn't it?
He's really sick that one, isn't
That's what we fussed about. I thought it was raining.
Ah!
They're like my spirit animal. You know how I like cats? I like these little creatures. Look at that.
You're going to be taking a squirrel home in your bag.
he?
They're everywhere.
There's a word in Sanskrit called avidya. Avidya. And avidya means ignorance. And it's tamasic in a sense because it's losing our way and attaching ourselves to the experience of life, of living. And this is coming back to what the initial question of what are we here for, what are we doing, how can we just enjoy the world, but also meanwhile we're also meant to be realizing who we truly are, the truth of who we are. And so in the yogic teachings they would say that avidya, this ignorance of our true nature, ignorance of knowing who we truly are, is what really causes all our suffering, because we get attached to the experience. So again, it's we're here to have experience, but the experience can be both delightful and painful depending on how it goes. And so the idea is that we're kind of having the experience, but from a point of no attachment to the experience, because we know that really actually that's not who we are. The truth of the matter is that we are consciousness having a human experience, but we attach ourselves and we step into this place of avidya, of ignorance, just thinking we are the experience. The experience is all that we are. And then when it goes wrong, especially, we have a pretty hard time because we're attached to it. But if we can let go of that tamasic ignorance, avidya, not let go, if we can, something really to let go of it, but if we can
See it for what it is, or something.
yeah, see it, realize that, oh, hold on a sec, this is really not who I am. I am that which sees, or I'm the seer. I'm the subject, not the object. We get involved in the object of experience, which creates the suffering. So yeah, that was just a little by and by. But it's tricky because having the experience of being human is, you know, predominantly this whole mind of ours experiencing and getting pretty sort of identified with this is who I am. I am, you know, from this egoic structure that forms through the chitta. Chitta, our lens in which we see the world, which is not just mind. It's mind. Mind from the Sanskrit or the yogic perspective is chitta. Is really individual consciousness in a sense. So it involves the ego, the intellect, the memory, and the sensual or functioning mind of experiencing the world through the senses. So all those different kind of parts is the chitta. And the egoic aspect of that, I mean, part of it's just function. You know, you see something through the eyes and you see the leaf registers in the brain, stores it there in the subconscious. Good, it's a leaf, I know, leaf, I know now. You know, I can compare it to other leaves that I've seen before or have an idea what they might be like. You know, this is all just functioning parts of the mind. But the egoic part of the mind is kind of where we get into a bit of trouble. The egoic part of the mind is still really essential. It's not like we slay the ego. That's kind of like a misnomer, really. We can't slay the ego, because if you slay the ego, then you'd just be a blithering mess. Because the ego gives us a sense of individuality within a seemingly separate world, different experiential parts, let's say. So it's important to be able to function in this world, the ego. But the problem is it gets really kind of like super strong, and it creates this kind of bubble of individuality that we get kind of very locked up into identifying with. So we are fully identified with this individual self, separate to everything else. And that's where we gotta start to actually do the work, is to actually just realize, well, hold on, actually I'm not just that. That is, let's say, this momentary expression of, you know, Mickey, the teacher, the DJ, or whatever I'm being in the moment. Because, you know, you can be a million things actually. You can just keep changing that identity as much as you change your masks or whatever. But, you know, thinking even that, well, then that's not really who I am, because that's just an ever-changing expression. So we need to start to dissolve, I guess, the hard barrier of the ego, dissolve it a little, soften it, so we realize, can we see through it and say, oh yeah, I am this consciousness that is manifesting through all of life. And that's where we get this idea of we are part of the oneness, part of the all, of the all. You am I am you, we are one. But it's a tricky kind of game because of the strength of the ego. And so it's really interesting when you think about, well, how did this even come about? Because actually when we were born, we didn't have that personal identity. You think about babies, when you see babies, they're totally at one with all, with everything. Aren't they? You notice how a baby just kind of like has no cares in the world. Baby just is just in bliss, enjoying the bliss of just being. Cries when it needs some food or needs some touch or whatever, but doesn't really give a damn about, you know, who's going to be the president of America or paying the rent or anything at all that we get hung up about within our personal experience of living in the world. And so, yeah, Clive always tells the story of like when there comes a point, and those of you who've got kids would have noticed this, that when the child reaches usually around about the age of 2, where they suddenly, because we've been drumming as parents, we start to condition the child to become a person, to become an individual. Give the child a name. We say good Johnny, bad Johnny. You know, do this Johnny, do that Johnny. Be good, you're not good, da 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 da. And so the child starts to, you know, at first it's just like, Johnny's just in bliss. And then after some time it's like, who's this Johnny that they talk about? And you even see when kids start to talk, they talk almost in that third person. They say, oh, Johnny is hungry, or Johnny wants this. Because they haven't fully identified with being Johnny, but they're starting to get there.
So what if you never name the child?
Yeah, I know.
They would name themselves and still become that.
Some people have asked Clive that question.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we had,
It's like chicken and
it's
the egg.
the way it is to be, like we had to go through this process in order to re-remember or something like that. Like you had to step out of the picture.
But yeah, you're stepping out of the picture. So Johnny's completely in the picture when he's the baby. And then we're training him and egging him on to step out of the picture so that he gains his individuality.
To conform to the society that we live in so you survive.
Yeah,
some
but
degree, yeah, we need it.
he needs that. We all need that to be able to then function. That's the ego being born. Previous to that, there's no ego. Johnny has no ego when he's a little baby. But the ego starts to form. And then at one point it's like, it really locks in, and it's like that moment when you take away the lollipop from Johnny.
Mine.
And Johnny says, that's mine!
Fully formed.
And prior to that, there was no mine. There was no me.
Me, mine, you
Me
take a
or
toy
mine.
away and the baby doesn't really care.
There's no me in my life. And so suddenly we get fully involved in me and my life. And we have this whole journey of getting stronger and stronger in our attachment to me and my life, until we come to these teachings and start to consider that actually maybe I'm not really who I've been conditioned or conditioning myself to think I am.
And it's since I started the yoga teacher training, and maybe even before that, maybe just from the classes that we've had and stuff, and I had become much more aware of the ego, so I can I can say, oh, I'm getting up, I'm attached to that, I'm getting upset about that, that's the ego. And I can realise it and I can recognise it, and sometimes I can let something go. Other times I know that's the ego, but I'm still going with it. Like,
And
Yeah.
before that, you had no awareness that that was
No.
even happening, right?
no.
Yeah.
So yes, but I found like the ego of that thing, little thing pops into my head a lot. You know, I'm getting upset about, that's your ego, and it's just like, you. But
But the dark chocolate, like, oh, should I keep eating this block or should I?
no,
save
it's
the
more
50
like
minutes?
you know, I'm a bit vain. I like looking pretty and putting some lippy on, and you know, and that's the ego. And I'm like, okay, but that makes me feel good, so I'm going to just go with that.
Yeah.
But and you know, how I suppose how I'm perceived in the world. Like you know, I used to, I suppose, feel you know, that I was successful. I'd achieved something because of the job that I had. And now I'm sort of like, I actually really hate the job that I've been doing. How is that successful? Like, you know, whose idea was this? How did I end up in this job? Like, this isn't the life I wanted to be living. Whose success am I living? That's not what I consider success. Like, all these questions.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a lot of noise in his head. but it's fun. Like it's
Well, it's
you
good.
know,
You're starting to question it,
yeah.
and that's
And to,
it's enlightening.
to,
Like
to
it's
see it, yeah, the truth. Yeah.
But a lot of people identify as the job. Hi, I'm Jeffrey. I'm the bank manager from blah 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 blah. You know, and they give you a handshake. People are.
Well,
You know,
that's
this is like COVID. I remember having a chat to a girl over COVID, and she was devastated because I think her ego was wrapped up in her job and sort of crumbled, and all of a sudden she's like, right,
who am I? What am I worth? What's my value?
But getting back to the Johnny thing, there must have been a moment for everybody where your parents are asking your name, and you're
That's
just
right.
like, who the fuck's this John?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
fuck's me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like that. It just came to the head. It's like,
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
me,
To everybody.
me. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Am I me? You know, like, okay.
So if I say Johnny, I might be able to get this chocolate.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah.
strengthen that
That's
all the
right.
way through our lives, and our narrative is
Mhm.
the narrative all around us is designed that way, so it keeps getting strengthened.
Sort of locked in. Yeah.
Like before I came here, I almost didn't come because my daughters have been having all these difficulties, and she loves being the kid and being like a useless little amoeba that mum just pours money at. You know, she loves that. But this, not long ago, just when you were speaking, I was thinking about something not long ago, a month ago. I said to her, honey, and I never said it before, I can keep working this stuff out for you, but one day I'm going to die. And I need to make sure that you know how to take care of you. And she nothing flickered on her face, but something shifted. And this time when I said, I'm going to cancel my trip, she came to me the next day with steps and an action plan and said, please don't cancel your trip, I've got it.
Wow.
And she'd never done it. But like this is how, you know, even at 24, like I'm still watching that process
Yeah.
of individuating.
Mhm.
It keeps happening and happening more and more. We're all doing it all the time unless we start choosing not to do it.
Or come to a teaching where we even hear something like this.
So
If you
in
don't
fact,
hear it.
in fact,
Yeah.
one of the points that I think, I don't know if it's Eric or Clive, one of them makes is that generally you need to first of all really be strong in your person before you can lose your person. You have to be comfortable and secure in your personhood before being able to then shed that. And when I say shed that, not that we shed it completely. So, for example, when like Eric's, many other teachers too might have had experiences or connections with using sacraments as a way, as a tool to help dissolve the person in a sense. And so he would say, well, I wouldn't give it to young kids. I wouldn't, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't want that sacramental experience where you can have an experience of dissolving the person until you're already strong in your own personhood. So that's kind of like a good sort of call for that. These kind of sacramental experiences, whether it's ayahuasca, mushroom, soma, whatever it is, should not really be given to young kids or young adults even until they're actually secure in their personhood and they're ready to dissolve their person.
It's like that saying as well, isn't it? It's not for everyone.
Oh yeah, I mean that
Yeah,
that in itself is not for everyone, no.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, so it has to be through sacraments, but just the whole idea of dissolving, because self-realization is, it's not dissolving the person, but it's shifting the identity. Shifting your identity from being a person, I am Mickey, the yoga teacher, to I am consciousness. It's the shift of identity, what you're identifying with, and it's much more useful, much easier, because if you're having, let's say, if you haven't really identified as a person yet, in the sense that you're not really strong in your personhood, and you have an experience, an awakening experience, where however it goes, however it comes to be, but you haven't really formed that solid person living in the world experience first, then you can really struggle to live in the world. Because having the experience of awakening in a self-realized state means that you've suddenly identified with consciousness, and you know this person is just an illusion. But if you've never been solid in that person, then you don't even, I guess, you're not even then able to
Realize it, maybe, or recognize it.
not able to navigate the personal world with ease, which is why sometimes people can have these, sometimes through trauma, through sacraments or drugs, through Kundalini awakenings, through all sorts of experiences that can happen, where you're shifted, you're banged out of your personal identity into the infinite space. You recognize that as the truth. But because you weren't so solid in your personal world, then it's hard to come back and integrate back in the world. Which is why sometimes people can end up in, have this, you could call it some kind of psychosis. Maybe they've actually had a spiritual experience where they've identified with universal consciousness, but because they weren't stable and strong within their person, then coming back to try to live in the world, they really struggle to reintegrate, and so it can be seen as psychosis. They get locked away, or pumped full of other drugs, or whatever.
I can actually see that on another level, where it's not just about focusing on your own consciousness or, trying to achieve that or whatever. But as a mum, I can see that because I'm at a place where my oldest is now, like, I've let her go. Like, it's a real conscious kind of, I can see that she has actualized her own individualism, and I can let go. And like, it's hard to explain. Like, I've got 2 other kids. It's not an age thing, it's a maturity, it's a wisdom. I can see that she's secure and confident, and I don't, it's not even that she doesn't need me, it's like she's got her path.
She's motivated.
And it's
Yeah, I totally feel you too. I'm in exactly the same boat at the moment with my daughter. And there's a real sadness in a way, but there's also a happiness at the same time, isn't there?
sad, absolutely.
It's,
So proud and so
but yeah,
uplifting.
at the same time,
There's a researcher of human motivation, Andrew Maslow, and he talks about the hierarchy of needs. It's like you got shelter, food, then it's like self-esteem, love and belonging. Then you'll eventually reach self-actualization. So if you have those needs met, then you can, I guess, be motivated. That's what gives road to human motivation.
And I guess you can get those needs met in different ways, whether it's religious or nature or, you know, family or the different levels would have different aspects that you could reach, that you could meet in meditation.
Sometimes it's all about just having that purpose, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Whatever purpose is
Intention.
individual. But I've heard things like, I remember reading about how they talk about denial. The first thing that people generally do is they get angry. There's like this always angry about going down. So people will, so then, they get really angry with things, and eventually they sort of get through that anger, and it's the next step. And I always thought it was fascinating. Because I think it's that thing where people felt on some level that they were being lied to. So that's real, denial, but like that, and then bang, like,
I literally. Sorry.
no, not everything, but I've always thought that that's fascinating, and it pops up every now and again. You go, oh, okay.
I literally just read in my book before. I'm reading a book about Indigenous ways of living, and the chapter's about giving, and he wrote a few quotes of like famous people that wrote about giving. Picasso, his quote was, "The meaning of life is to discover your gift, and then your purpose of life is to give that gift."
I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
So going back to Tracy's question, you don't have to do it. There's no point to it. It's a clever question, but we could.
Is it a case of, if it's a point, make it a point? If it's not a point, don't make it a point. It's like, I don't know, so back to that while we're here. It's all part of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's as simply yes, right? A, we're here to have a good time, enjoy the beauty of Mother Nature, and B, to realise the truth of who we are from that place of pure consciousness.
I guess in the Matrix, everything is thrown at you. Your Netflix, your this, your
Yeah.
this, it's to blockade. You're trying to go through.
That's
and
right.
it's just boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
Big obstacles. And it's just been able to do this, to see, oh, it's Kotan. Or there's this. Because it's like, no, you're not looking at it.
Eric said something one time, do you remember? He said something like, everything in life is a distraction, and distracting you from your true nature. It's like a little kid that's getting called home, like inside, when they're playing outside. And until the kid's ready
Love that.
to come back inside, forever getting distracted.
Oh, just one more game,
Yeah, one more game, one more ice
The ice cream truck.
One more ice cream. I'm not ready to go.
And look, all my
back
friends
in
are still in the
yet.
playground. I want to be there too.
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes.
That
How
kind
funny.
of thing.
But when you get home, it's nice. It's like
Then you can
mum's-
really enjoy
mum's
the ice
nice
cream.
food. And you've got your nice comfy bed, sleeping. Home is where the heart is.
Something like that.
So we'll leave it at that, I think, today. Right on time. Let's just take a moment to have a little sit there, quick little meditation. Because I was kind of getting at it before. Maybe tomorrow's satsang I'll go into a bit more detail of the path of yoga, and we can look at maybe the 8 limbs of yoga as a roadmap to help us achieve this A, the sattvic place, and B, the self-realized state or place of beingness. So when we sit for meditation, it can help to cultivate that sattvic place or state just by kind of coming to your breath observing the fluctuations of the mind, just noticing anything that arises, but knowing that everything that does arise also subsides. So if a thought arises, we can then choose how we react to that thought. We can be reactive to it and be rajasic in the approach, fight fire with fire. But rather than wanting to cultivate that sattvic state, so if a thought arises that maybe is annoying or whatever, just give it a moment to express itself, but then without getting attached to it, knowing that eventually it passes, whether it's not right in this moment. It's just part of prakriti, that which comes and goes, the manifest world. It all comes and goes. And so, just shifting the identity to the knower or the observer, that aspect of self that is experiencing, or the experiencing is arising within, from within in a sense. So a thought arises and a thought subsides. And we could then maybe shift our attention to our breath, and the breath arises as we inhale and the breath subsides as we exhale. And then we can really use that. Doesn't have to be the breath, but just a choice to make. Right now, the breath can be our point of focus, where we encourage our minds to connect to, connecting the mind to the breath, so that we slow down all the other fluctuations or distractions, but always with an open mind, in a sense, an open heart, when thoughts do arise or emotions arise. Just let it arise rather than reacting. Just allow it to arise. Thought arise, okay. There's a thought of this and that. Just let it do its thing and then come back to your breath. So in a sense, just try to ignore it. It arises, calls for our attention. Give it a little attention, just a recognition or an acknowledgement. But if we start giving it too much attention, then that's our choice, our reaction. We're getting lost in that thought. Thought arises, does its thing, we ignore it, and we come back to our breath. Our breath becomes our point of focus, what we call our dharana. Ultimately, there will be some moments where there is just breath. The mind settles until the next thought arises. Just settling into that connection with your breath. The breath is arising within you. The breath is arising within me. The sound of the boats arising within me. The sound of the oceans arising within me. The sound of the crickets, squirrels, footsteps. All is arising within you. Maybe a thought again, maybe an emotion. Everything simply arises from within. When you're ready, blink the eyes open. Acknowledge the visual experience that's arising within us. Thank you, namaste. Let's take a 5-minute break. If you want to go to the toilet or whatever, then we'll set ourselves up for just a short yin practice again, like about an hour will do. So set ourselves up like we did yesterday, so I'll be there.